Hello again everybody, I'm Phil Liggett along with Paul Sherwin and welcome to our highlight package of the 62nd edition of the Fleche Wallonne in the Belgian Ardennes. An event which started back in 1936 and today returns to the Belgian city of Charleroi, where it last was held in 1982. But the climbs of the Puy are still there, 3 times up this brute of a wall, and 25 top teams are here, including some of the big names we expect to see in action in this year's Tour de France. Alongside me, as ever, is Paul Sherwin, and we now pick up the action with the race 50 kilometres from the finish. And the road's still wet, Paul, but in fact the breakaway of 3 riders, Udo Bolts, Nico Verheyen and Christophe Moho, a maximum lead of 2 minutes 30, now in great danger of being brought back here in the last 50 kilometres. They broke clear at the 79 kilometre point just before they went over the top of the Moer de Puy first time, with Bolts in the lead ahead of Verheyen and Moho. Second time up the mountain it was Moho, Verheyen, Bolts, and now it looks as though the Onset boys are trying to work this race back together.
They certainly are. They've come to this race, I think, on a mission. They feel that now Loren Jalleh is capable of taking victory again. He's had a very difficult time so far this season, but just last week he was second overall in the Tour of Pays Basque in northern Spain to his own teammate. So I think things will be looking good for Loren Jalleh when we come into the final part of today's Fleche Wallonne. He loves this race and he's really on his own kind of terrain.
This is the route this year, as I said, slightly amended, now starting at Charleroi, but straight into the heart of the Ardennes, this beautiful area of Belgium, and we finish back right on the summit of the Moer de Puy, the Wall of Puy. And this is the attack which happened a few minutes ago from a slow-motion camera, and it's Rolf Jerman who sprints away from the field for Casino. You know, this is an unfashionable team in many respects, Casino, even though they have the Olympic champion Pascal Richard on it. And yet they have already had 24 wins this season, and Garcia is the other rider, and it looks as though we've got a third man tag on the back there, and I think it is Bettini of the Asics team.
It certainly is. Everybody's a little nervous at the moment because they haven't managed to pull that group of 3 riders clear, but we are coming into a critical part of this afternoon's Fleche Wallonne because very shortly we're going to have 4 very repetitive climbs. The Côte de Boissou really is a tough one as well, which in recent years is where the major decision has been made by Loren Jalleh, which is why I think Onset are so close at the front, keeping the hammer down, keeping the speed up to prevent anybody else from attacking, but also to pull back the 3 leaders slowly.
And just look at the yellow jerseys here of Onset, trying to keep Jalleh in a position because they've clearly got plans to launch Jalleh as these final 3 climbs start, culminating with the 3rd climb, which is the climb right to the finishing line. It's a really steep climb. It takes a little bit of walking up actually, and as always a huge crowd waiting on top of the Moer de Puy.
This is a strange tactic for the Onset squad today because in previous years they've come to these classics, the Fleche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, with 2 leaders in the shape of Loren Jalleh and Alec Zuller. Zuller now has left to ride for the Festina squad, making Loren Jalleh the sole leader when it comes into these one-day events. It puts an awful lot more pressure onto him, but in the final of the race today he can certainly use the power that he's got because the kind of rider he is reminds me an awful lot of the way Sean Kelly used to ride these events.
And very typical the weather today, and we've got another guy going clear here. Now is it André Perron of Les Français de Jeu? It looks like the former Motorola man who's decided to have a little go now, and he's riding on pretty good form right now. I'm pretty confident for this event today.
He certainly is. He has a house in Steamboat, Colorado. Very much enjoys spending most of his winter months in the United States because he spends a lot of time cross-country skiing to keep his form right up during the winter. And it looks as if there's one of the Casino boys trying to come across to him as well. They've been very aggressive, the Casino team. They're not an organised, dominant team like the Onset squad at the front here with the yellow jerseys. What their tactic is trying to put people into the breakaways so that they're in fact using the tactics of a lot of the other teams. Now this is one of the Casino boys trying to get across there to André Perron. They're starting to look now for the little counter-attacks which may pay, but it's surprising really that the Onset boys are letting this happen at the moment because they've been so dominant over the last 20 or 30 kilometres, and now it may well be that there's a little bit of a flaw starting to come into their armour because they're not able to match the attacks by these riders from different teams.
As you spoke there, Paul, the Onset boys came up and they've allowed the gap to open up again to this Casino rider, who's now put his head down. They've just flipped over the top of that little climb. And he's got a little bit of speed coming his way now. A quick glimpse of his number. This is, in fact, his Luto, the winner of the Tour of Switzerland, which was something of a surprise last year, but even so, he's been pretty solid since. And getting his form in time, perhaps, for a defence of his title in the Tour of Switzerland later this year.
Certainly did change his performance once he came up with that great win, because he was put under a lot of pressure by riders like Jan Ullrich in that Tour of Switzerland last year, and he never cracked at all. His teammates were a great help to him when it came to the big climbs towards the finish there, and he survived quite admirably to take that victory. And he rode a good Tour de France as well, but so far this season he's been very quiet, and I think the idea really is to bring him up slowly, as you said, to look at a defence of his title at the Tour of Switzerland, but in fact to have a much better Tour de France.
Well, I have to say, though, that a lot of the publicity detracted away from him, because his casino team have been popping up some of the smaller races all over Europe and taking the race stages as well. So they've had a great start to the season, and once somebody in the team starts winning, it seems to have a nice ricochet effect. And Luto having a dig here now to try and sort out this race and get something going. The Onset are having a job controlling the enthusiasts of the bunch. This is Andrea Perron, who is now joined on the offensive from La Française des Jeux. And Perron due for a win, because he really is just below that level at the moment. There's the situation now. We haven't caught the three leaders who shaped this race since the 79th kilometre. They're still out by just a few seconds. But any minute now, we're going to catch a glimpse of them from the helicopter, I think. In fact, we're going to catch a glimpse of them right now from our ground camera. And Udo Bolts, who, you know, if Jan Ullrich continues to display poor form along with Bjarne Riis, Bolts could find himself the leader of the Telecom team in this year's Tour de France.
He's certainly good, and this man has been around for an awful long time. In fact, he finished 9th overall in the Tour de France one year, and he really is the kind of rider that Team Telecom has come to count on. And given his own chance in a one-day event, he really does have a good chance of winning. He won 5 races last year, but I think his greatest win was really the Dauphiné Libéré in France. We'd won the overall there, just outfoxing Abraham Alano towards the end there and cracking him on one of the big mountain climbs.
Festina rider is Christophe Moreau.
Great win by him this year in the Criterium International. Festina too have really bolstered their strengths this year by bringing in 1 or 2 riders to make them, I think, what's going to be a very competitive team, not only in the Tour of Italy, the Tour de France, but also in the Tour of Spain. They've got a super big programme, and they will in fact be sending a very strong team to the new Prix Tour in England.
For Onset on the front, the gap coming down all of the time. The maximum lead that we timed them was at 2 minutes 30 seconds. And that has been steadily coming down now, and pretty much routine at the moment, because the riders relying on the last 3 climbs to work away at the leaders. There's the 2 chasers, and Onset seem to be lassoing them as well, because the gap is really nothing. And if our camera can move left, and it can, I think we're not going to be far up the road before we see the other 3. And there they are they? Yes, there they are. Well, that looks about 35-40 seconds, doesn't it?
It's a shame for Andrea Perron and Luto there, because they're actually caught in the middle in no man's land. They're not actually now making any more distance towards these 3 leaders, but what they're in fact doing for the Onset squad is acting like a carrot. They're encouraging the Onset team to pull them back, and in so doing it will close down the lead that these 3 breakaway riders have at the moment. In fact, it has come down again in just a little bit, 20 seconds to the Perron group and 25 seconds to the main field, so it's all over, I think, almost bar the shouting.
Well, they've survived a long way. The race itself a distance of 201 kilometres today. So they were planning an attack which would have lasted 120 kilometres. But they're going to be caught with around about 38k to go. But they've had a jolly good workout. Nice leg stretch before we go to the Liège-Bastogne-Liège Classic. Coming up on Sunday. It's Wednesday here in the Ardennes today. I haven't seen anybody look round, but they must know that the rain is coming to an end here. Oh, they have now, and they know the situation. There's Verheyen, and here are the Onset boys driving on now for their man Laurent Jalabert, the world #1, and looks set to stay there for another year at the top, with more than 600 world ranking points more than the second rider in the listing. Most consistent rider, and these days seems to be doing it without major successes. He keeps nibbling away in the smaller tours and smaller single-day races, but not in the big races like the Tour de France.
Coming through to the front there is Nicola Bartoli. A quick shot just earlier of Frank Vanderbrook, the favourite really to try and win this event in the centre of Wallonne. There's Vanderbrook there with the white helmet and the Mappé jersey. Alongside him, a man who's ridden very well this year as well. That's Michael Bogart, the Dutch national champion riding for Rabobank. A good win by him in Semana Catalana just a couple of weeks ago, showing that he really is becoming a very dominant rider in the hilly stage races, somebody that the Dutch have been looking for several years.
So Perron has been picked up along with Agneluto, and now just the 3 left and the time gap negligible. Now the Onset boys, will they try to send riders across the gap or just chase down as a peloton? Very often as they get close, the tactics will change and riders will try to reach those 3 by sprinting across the gap and hope they can start something afresh. Different riders begin to come near the front now as they all fancy their chances, and here comes an attack from Casino. We've seen Yerman attack, we've seen Agneluto attack. And quite clearly Casino really are on a high right now and confident. And sorry about the little bit of break-up again, it's our camera and the vibration possibly from the helicopter as the riders slightly change direction here.
I think the best tactic that the Onset riders can adopt at the moment is just to try and keep the speed up high enough to make sure that no more riders manage to attack, because we're around about 40 kilometres left to go to the finish. But in about 10 or 15 kilometres time there is a very difficult climb called the Côte de Buoy, and that is where in recent years Laurent Jalleh has actually launched his first attack, his first offensive of his attempt to win the Fleche Wallonne, and that is where he can ride away and split the group and hopefully bring it down to a number of riders which is quite manageable.
41 kilometres left to go, just over 25 miles, and this is all working the way of the Onset boys right now. They've got this breakaway under control. The road's a little bit greasy from the rain earlier, and there's still a light drizzle coming down at the moment. But as anybody knows, when you come to this part of the Ardennes at this time of the year, there tends to be a fair bit of precipitation with all the trees around. But it is really a stunning part of Belgium, and so different to the Flanders area with the cobblestones and the small mountains that exist there. In fact, the hills, sorry Paul, I was just about to say that the fact the hills down this way are an extension of the Massif Central from France. It's about the end of the chain, I think.
It certainly is. It's almost the end of the chase for these 3 riders at the front here, because the last time gap was just 23 seconds, so very shortly those 3 men should be pulled back into the fold.
There's Udo Bolts. Now taking a double take, he knows now they're coming in, and yes, he knows now that this isn't going to work at all. Christophe Moho, a winner this year. A lot of Casino boys still down there in the group.
Pascal Richard there wearing number 58 with the Olympic rings on his back. I'm not sure if that's completely legal, but he's decided he wants to make note of the fact that he is the Olympic champion for the next couple of years, and he's designed his own jersey, which I've never seen anybody in fact wear before, but it is a very nice idea.
Well, he's the first Olympic champion, but he did complain at the time that was it worth anything when you give a world champion a rainbow jersey and you give the Olympic champion nothing. Well, of course, since then he's had endless injury, and now he's back in action this year, and in fact those Olympic rings are everywhere the word casino would normally be on the jersey. He substituted it with the Olympic rings, and well, I don't think anybody will be complaining.
Certainly looked as if he was coming back to some kind of form towards the end of last year in the Tour of Spain, where he was very close on several occasions to getting a stage victory, and hopefully this year he'll be back again, the old competitive rider that he was.
Well, he's sitting nicely in the centre of quite a fast-moving peloton here now. Everybody knows it's down to Jalleh. He's the winner twice in the last 3 years, and so the Onset boys will do all the work, and they're going to just go along for the ride right now, knowing that when this gap comes a little bit closer, then I think there'll be a series of attacks from this bunch. And we're looking now at about 15 seconds to the 3 leaders.
They certainly will. I think all these Onset riders are thinking about at the moment is getting to the bottom of that climb, the Côte de Buoy, and then it's going to be a question of it's all up to you, Jaja. You're the man who's the chosen one for today. You're the man who has to take the race by the hands. And with just 26 kilometres to go from that point, it's an ideal situation to launch an attack and try and split the field. But all the time, the pace of the Onset riders at the front is allowing 1 or 2 riders to come up from behind, because this group seems to me to have swelled a little bit over the last few kilometres.
Well, it's been that sort of race, really. Riders getting back after they sort of got rid of the weaker ones on the first and second climb of the Hui, who've gone into retirement. All of these riders pretty equal now, because these sort of roads not conducive to breaking the field up, and the weather conditions are low, slippery, and the wind itself not really splitting the field. Quick glimpse there we saw of the world champion, Loren Brochard, making his way back into competition. And here we look now at the boys from Onset, concentrating pretty hard.
Well, on the front there is David Echavarria. A strange design, these new bicycles the Onset squad have adopted this year. They've actually changed their equipment during the winter months and gone across to Giant as a new sponsor, having been sponsored for many years by the Look company from France. And the bikes they're riding are very efficiently, but they do have a strange look. And interestingly enough, that top tube tilts downwards, so I'd always get the impression I was riding uphill.
Perhaps that's why they go so well. Now, there's our man on the bike. Now, what's he looking at? The leading three? No, the Onset boys. It's quite a friendship develops between the television cameramen, who are regular people in amongst the peloton. The riders recognise them. And, of course, in a race when it gets really hot, they know that the cameraman knows exactly where to place his motorbike and stay out of the way while getting the action. They don't like to see newcomers on those motorbikes, though, because they know then they're likely to make a mistake and they could bring the field down. Well, that's how far to go to the climb, 6.8 kilometres, and it looks to me as though they're timing the capture to perfection here. A little bit of a rush up the outside, another couple of La Française des Jeux riders coming through. Onset, though, are being left to do all of the work, which is to be expected.
Everybody now kind of queuing up behind the Onset, because they know at the climb of the Côte de Buoy that really is the crunch point that the race is going to see now. You can see a big line of casino riders coming up there too. Rolf Jerman obviously feeling pretty aggressive. Bo Hamburger is in there, and Christophe Agneluto. So they've been working very well together to keep all of their riders to the front, but everybody is taking advantage of the work being done by the Onset squad. And once they get to that climb, I reckon a lot of those yellow jerseys are going to disappear right out of the back of this group.
Well, their job is done. I just hope that Jela will finish it off for them. But these are lovely, fast roads here. You can see the space between the riders. One or two riders who are fancying their chances, like Michael Bogart down there in the Dutch National Championship jersey, moving forward and keeping an eye on certain riders. Casino are there in number, and they've got some riders who could well do well in this type of event. 33 kilometres to go. Just about 20 miles to the finish, but they're pretty hard now once we get onto this climb. Certainly won't get a bunch sprint, Paul. I think we can guarantee that.
I don't think so. But a lot of big favourites still in the group, Phil. Race Radio telling us that Luc Leblanc is still there, Frank Vanderbrook, Francesco Casagrande, Jalleh and Vironk as well. So interesting to see Richard Vironk is still at the front in a race like this. He really is a man to ride and attempt to race over all terrains.
Well, these three have been allies, doing the first share of the work each. At least they're getting themselves some very valuable training miles in today. Well, there's 5 Onset riders on the front, just guiding the field here through the village. And this is the village of Onden. Well, it's a town, really. And some beautiful gardens, too, which we can get a bird's eye view of. And it's down now to 11 seconds, Paul. So it's almost as if the Onset boys are allowing them to dangle out there, because they really want to catch them, I think, just as the climb itself begins.
Well, they've no reason at all to catch them any sooner than that. In fact, by having this group of 3 riders out in the front, it contains a lot of the attacks behind, because everybody is waiting for the Onset riders to bring back this leading group of 3. And then once that happens, the attacks will start to come. So for Onset, it's an advantage to leave the 3 men out in front as long as they can and as long as they want to, because they now feel confident that once they just lift the pace a little bit, they'll pull the 3 riders back into the fold.
Very gentle right-hand turn here. The roads are still wet. And the riders sprinting away. Christophe Moho sitting at the back is Verheyen.
The Belgian rider, Lotto, Verheyen has just one victory to his credit this year. A small race in the northern France, the Grand Prix de Lille, which is out on the coast, finishing in Le Touquet. A good race that Lotto has always supported over the last few years. One of the first races in France to accept the entry of professional riders and now become part of the French Coupe de France. And very often it falls to the foreign teams to come down there and dominate. But Onset on the front of the main field, very organised, a slick operation here, and interesting to see Laurent Jalabert just sitting there in 5th position, allowing his boys to set the pace, to keep all of the race together, neutralising any attacks and suspending really the race until they get to the next climb, and then I think everything is going to happen.
Well, I'm sure the reason this breakaway never got more than 2.5 minutes was because of the presence of Udo Bolts. He's far too good a rider to allow too much of a lead to, and he is the best card of the Telecom Deutsche team today, because not here, Bjorn Rees still recovering from this very annoying wrist injury which simply will not heal up, and also the overweight of Jan Ulrich, he hasn't started either, and Rees saying he'll make his start of his return to fitness in the Peace Race, which is the old top class amateur race, now like every race in the world, open to all category of rider. So really Bolts is the man they've played the card of, and if he gets caught I don't see a victor coming from Telecom.
It's going to be very difficult, but you can see now all the big names of Fleche Wallonne starting to move to the front there. I could see Mauro Gianetti moving very close. He's there in 6th position for the Française des Jeux. Also moving up, the champion of Holland, Michael Bogart, with his teammate Martin den Bakker. And very shortly they'll be on the foot of the Côte de Buoy, so 20% at the steepest part and 3.4 kilometres long. In fact, immediately they hit the foot of the climb, the Onset riders at the front just slipping away.
Oh, and that's what the Festina rider Moho is deciding to try and have a go at this. I think Bolts has had it. And in fact, Moho on his own now, he's going to try and hang on and see if he can pick up a group that may come forward to him on the climb. These climbs are not long, but as you can see from this picture, they are very steep. And it's a total destruction phase now for these Onset riders on the front. Zarabitia setting the pace, because once they're over the top, I think as Paul has said, they will drop back and it's all over. Bolts has gone. I don't know whether I should say he shot his bolts, Paul, but he's gone down the back there, and I think he's going to be out of the back very shortly.
Verheyen there has been picked up as well, and this last remaining rider from Onset is doing everything that he can to keep the pace as high as possible, because shortly what will happen is he will swing off and leave it all up to Laurent Jalabert. But look at the stars queuing up on Jalabert's wheel.
Yeah.
Bogart behind him Frank Vanderbrook, then one of the Festina riders, which might be Richard Vironk, then it's Bo Hamburger. So everybody's queuing up on the wheel of the Frenchman, waiting for him to make his next move.
Well, they know he is a man for the Ardennes weekend classics. He's always ridden so well here. He doesn't ride the races like Paris-Roubaix. He waits for this one to come along. And certainly Michael Bogart is due a big win since he won his national championship last year. He's a class bike rider, is Bogart, former stage winner of the Tour de France. Now Jalabert's making the predicted attack here. Well, Bogart was in the grandstand seat to see him go, and it's gone with him. So there's two of them gone, and is this FDB coming across? Vanderbrook trying to join as well.
Well, everybody knew that something was going to come from Laurent Jalabert there. They were all queuing up on his wheel, but only two men have been able to respond to that acceleration that he put in there. But two very good opponents have joined him. The man from Holland there, the champion there, Michael Bogart, and right on his wheel, Vanderbrook. But the whole field now actually recovering and coming back up, so still a very big group. This is not the Laurent Jalabert of old. He's not split anything off the front.
Normally when Jalabert goes one or two, maybe half a dozen, but not the whole field. Those legs aren't as magic as they have been in the past, I don't think.
He's not going to be very happy with that. In fact, the race telling us Vanderbrook, Bogart and Jalabert in front together, but in fact it's about 15 or 20 riders, and Jalabert looking over his shoulders to see if he's done any damage, and unfortunately that's going to be a real blow to his morale to see there are still 10 or 12 riders behind him.
Well, absolutely. He almost sent the message down the whole field. They knew he was going to try here. He's a very predictable rider, Laurent Jalabert. And now, this is how he launched the attack. Where you see Bogart was right on his wheel, and Vanderbrook was not very far back. There's Vanderbrook in the white now as we go back to these live pictures. And there's a lot of riders going to take a little bit of encouragement now. There's Bartoli going as well. Now, Nicola Bartoli is the man of the early season classics. He's on form. He's one of the favourites for today. The Italian who has had a terrific run of results yet again in the early part of the season. And Jalabert going to try and rip his legs away. But Bartoli's hooked up at the back. He's had an enormous number of wins already. He's had 6 wins this year, Bartoli. and his best, most recent result, I suppose, 6th place in the Tour of Flanders.
Took a break from the World Cup races, didn't start Paris-Roubaix to get himself ready for an attack on Liège-Bastogne-Liège. And now, after that attack there, the second attack by Laurent Jalabert, it looks as if there is a small group starting to go off the front, taking up the action as well. Straight away, Nicola Bartoli. He's such an aggressive rider, and he's got a very good turn of speed on these short, sharp climbs of the Ardennes region, and adopting a little bit of a time trial position there. This year, the international governing body has decided to ban the clip-on bars that the riders were using an awful lot, claiming that they were responsible for a lot of the crashes in the Tour de France. But still, a lot of riders, when they get under pressure, adopting that position to try and get a little bit more power.
Well, there's Jalabert hooking up to the back wheel of Nicola Bartoli. The Italians, by the way, are the best nation for results in this event, after the Belgians, of course. The Belgians have won this event 35 times. And then come the Italians with 12 victories. The French have got 8. Rider trying to get on terms here is Rick Verbrugge. Not a name that we ever mentioned too often, Paul, but he's getting across. Took a look over his shoulder. Just look at these roads. Ideal for cycling, never mind cycle racing. It's a lovely area to come with your bike here.
There, just a glimpse of the sign showing 1 kilometre to go to the summit of this climb, and now looking like a very interesting group of 5 riders getting clear. One of the Casino riders has got in there, and I think that is Gilles Bouvard. In fact, there's confirmation. Number 53 is Gilles Bouvard of Casino. Jalabert, Bogart, Bouvard, Verbrugge and Bartoli. So this is a very good group, and this is why the Onset team were riding so hard along the flat roads before, because they felt that their man Jalabert had the power to split the race up once we got to this climb.
Well, now, this is a good move for Jalabert. He's going to worry about the presence of certainly Bartoli, and I would think also Bogart. The others may not concern him too much at the moment.
Certainly won't. If he can get a good working group of 5 riders, the kind of sprint finish and the tough finish that Laurent Jalabert has is ideal for a race that finishes at the top of a very difficult climb, as the Mur de Huy is. It really is a monster of a climb where riders have to use a bottom gear of around about 21 teeth, which for a finish of a race is quite a low development.
There's Bogart looking back. 2 wins this season. He won the Catalan week and took a stage in that event as well. Then he finished 4th overall in the Pays Basque race in Spain. So he has the legs, and he's proving that by being in at the kill here now. Bit of a scramble at the back.
But in fact, they haven't got that much of a gap at the moment.
No.
Frank Vanderbrook there, wearing number 11, suffering quite a lot there, not able really to match the speed of those attacks, and tucked right on the back there, the Seco Cannondale rider, is Roberto Petito.
Yeah, in fact, Frank is allowing a little gap to open just here as they go over the top. I don't think he's enjoying this day at the moment. He was a dominant winner of this year's Paris-Nice. He looked great in Ghent-Wevelgem, but the body is a strange thing. Now, what's happening here?
It looks like Bartoli had a little bit of a problem there. He was looking down at his gears, and in fact he wasn't able, I don't think, to get it to mesh with the rear cluster, and he's gone to the back there. Now this is a blow for him, because he was showing very good form on the earlier slopes of this climb, very aggressive, and he's in fact gone to the back of the group here.
And this group looking to be around 20 riders strong at the moment. There's Michele Bartoli sitting now on the back, sorted his gears out, so he's only lost a little bit of ground really. And the field generally coming back around. Frank Vanderbrook is in this group, which is now beginning to look a very solid breakaway.
Well, for Vanderbrook, this is his first race in a week, because last Wednesday, in fact, he won the Ghent-Wevelgem race, and what a fine start, because certainly not an ideal terrain for this kind of rider who's much more at home on the hillier races that we have down here in the Ardennes. And after his training week down there in the south of France, it might be a little bit difficult, the change of pace to him coming up to this race. But again, another attack by Jalabert. Once again, Bogart is with him.
Well, this is some smooth riding now. You've got to hand it to Jalabert. He knows if he keeps on hitting the riders, he'll break the morale in most cases. But certainly, we've got now 2 riders trying to go clear. A Festina rider looking a little bit confused here, doesn't know quite which way to go. I think he's going back anyway.
He couldn't make his mind up whether he was getting across to Jalabert or whether he was about to get caught. Another Festina rider taking up the chaser. That's Pascal Hervé. The next man there, you see there's 2 Casino riders. The little figure at the front is Bo Hamburger. And I would think right on his wheel is probably Rolf Jerman, who's been pretty aggressive over the last couple of kilometres too.
Well, he's a tall rider for Casino. We'll catch up with who's left in a minute. Here's that attack which came from Jalabert, you see. coming off second wheel, but Bogart, well, it's no doubt who he's decided to mark in this race. Straight out of the bunch without even hesitating at all, and jumps the wheel, well, grits his teeth, but still gets onto the wheel of Laurent Jalabert.
He's riding a great race this afternoon, Michael Bogart. He's obviously gone out with a tactic to make sure he sticks with the man in the yellow jersey. And those two riders have tried everything so far. Every time the road has tilted upwards to get away from this group of riders here. There on the back now, he's obviously been brought in. It's Pascal Hervé. And the rider on the front there from Polte, in fact, is Luc Leblanc.
Leblanc looking around. It'd be nice to see if Luc can get himself back onto form. Remember last year's Tour of Italy had that spectacular crash in the time trial.
His career certainly has been dogged by injury and accidents, and hopefully this year he'll come back and put in a great performance when it comes to the Tour de France. But it's nice to see one of the Festina riders in there, Laurent Dufaux, not always regarded as a one-day rider, and he too would suit himself quite nicely if they all stayed together when they came to the bottom of the Mur de Huy.
And Dufaux, fourth in last year's Tour de France, a vastly underrated rider and a supreme example of how a man with great talent sometimes can't produce it because of the bigger names on his team. And this year his problem's going to be bigger than ever because he's got Alec on the Festina team as well as Richard Virenque now. Back up with the two leaders, and Bogart, and number one as the previous winner of this race in the lead, Laurent Jalabert.
Amazing season so far for Jalabert. You know, he's only had 3 victories out on the road, and normally he would have had a string of about 10 so far. He's had a lot of second places this year, which makes me wonder if he's really having a lot of problem being the sole leader of the Onset squad. Maybe he was spurred on a lot by having a rider like Alec ride alongside him, forcing him to push himself just that little bit more. And this year hasn't been the greatest of season, and he does feel that he's kind of got a subscription out on the second place.
Well, there's nobody can say he doesn't ride the race to win it. He's now got himself an 11-second advantage over a group which looks a little bit organised to me down there, so this race isn't stitched up by any means yet.
It certainly is a very big group, and they are organised and they are determined to chase down Laurent Jalabert. In fact, one man very determined, Frankie Vanderbrook, looks to have recovered quite a bit there, putting the hammer down there, and you can see the power that he's got because everybody's having a great deal of difficulty staying on his wheel. Come on, boys, let's work together, that signal was supposed to say, but I think Alberto Elli here on the front was saying, well, that was a little bit of a hard turn, Frank.
Yeah, he would like them to work together as well, but the trouble is the leaders are going through so hard nobody can hold the wheel. And as a result, they're not organised after all that at the moment anyway. Here's Bogart, these two doing one-on-one, and they're doing it with good effect at the moment. This is a nasty little stretch of road. It's very exposed to the elements. Thank you, Mr. Cameraman, as well for that. And the rain is beginning to come down again now. The clouds here just blow in and blow out and leave behind wet roads. That's the way it is in the Ardennes. The riders are well aware it would happen. And now they are getting a bit organised because they've got themselves a split here which might cause the chase down. This looks like Bo Hamburger driving through. Swings over. Bartoli's got himself organised once again now.
Then the Belgian rider Verbrugge coming through there, and there's a very good rider in there for Mercatoni Uno with, I suppose, a very good name if you're going to be a bike rider, Marco Vello.
Absolutely. And this is forced to split now, so maybe they'll try to push this over because Bartoli will really fancy his chances here. It seemed a little bit of a problem, forced him to go back. As Bartoli going through, Bo Hamburger's going through, as a Seika rider got himself up here now.
Laurent Dufaux trying to catch a little bit of food into his mouth as they go down the descent. It's almost a little too late to start eating, and here is Marco Vello from Mercatoni just tagging onto the back. Now, the two riders in front, Laurent Jalabert and Michael Bogart, are just hoping they can get to the descent with a little bit of an advantage, take a few risks, and then they've got about a 10-kilometre stretch of flat before they come to the penultimate climb, the Côte de Benahin.
Well, here's the complete list. Down the bottom there, it's Sergei Ivanov, a new professional, Leblanc, Verbrugge, Massy, Hamburger, Bouvard, the two teammates, Ellie, and then Hervé, Dufaux and Vandenbroek. That's a pretty strong chase group now. And adding on the end there, Petito, Bartoli and Velli. Well, Petito is a man for the Tour of Italy, and he'd be pleased to see his form coming now.
Interesting to note there are 4 riders from Casino present in this group, so although they've not been a dominant team in the race this afternoon, they do have a lot of riders when it comes down to the final few kilometres. But there, once again, the race coming back together a little bit, and that could be good for the 2 leaders, because once you start to swell the numbers in a group, everybody then wants to take a little bit of a backseat. They miss the turns and the organisation goes out of the chase, so that could be good for Jalleh and Bogart.
It looks as though Bogart at the moment has got the speed that might well be thinning out the legs of Jalleh. He was lying off the back there. His face never does give anything away, but he's gone through. Bogart rejoined him, won a stage of the Tour de France a couple of years ago in conditions very similar to this. In fact, it was absolutely pouring down with rain. He took many risks, and the bunch said, right, you can have it, as they wouldn't chase him through the roundabouts.
That was a great victory that day. He took all of the sprinters by surprise. Several risks going through the town of Evian there, and it really was a remarkable finish by him. And that was the first time that we really had spoken about Michael Bogart. And Laurent Jalleh, I do think, Phil, in fact, is having a hard time staying with Bogart. He keeps looking over his shoulder. He's not confident at all here. He feels, in fact, as we went past the sign there, I would think, telling these riders there was around about 20 kilometres to go. The clock there at the bottom telling us 18.9, but I think the race official distance would still be 20 Ks.
Well, I often wonder how they gauge the clock to match what they put down on the road, but it's not always accurate, but it is a good guide for us at least. And the riders, well, they know exactly how far to go. It's the internal body clocks tell them. The yellow flag warning of a little bit of danger on the highway just ahead. And it looks like it's a very sharp left-hand turn on a greasy road here, and it is a sharp one as well. Right back on themselves. Just the sort of bend you could fall down on in these conditions.
It certainly is, but they haven't got to the steepest part of the descent yet, and still Jalleh looking over his shoulder, not confident, realising that although these guys are actually flat out at the moment, riding at about 110%, they're not opening up the gap on that group behind, and there are so many big names in that group, it's going to be difficult for these 2 guys to stay clear all the way to the finish.
And 2 climbs, including the finish climb in the last 10 kilometres as well. 9 seconds is the gap, absolutely no gains. In fact, a couple of seconds loss at the minute because of the counterattacks coming off the front of this group at the moment. There's again a flashback as to how this breakaway started. Jalleh going first on a muddy stretch of road as he went round Verbrugge of the Lotto team, and also Bogart watching his every move today.
Certainly attacked in a massive gear there, but Frank Vanderbrook in the white jersey there started to get a bit anxious, I feel, at the moment there. He's always coming to the front, always trying to pick up the pace there, and he won't get any help from the man in second position because that's Martin den Bakker, but he will get help from Nicola Bartoli. Coming through now from the ASICS CGA team. He wants to pick up the pace because he realises you can't let Jalleh get to the bottom of the Mur de Huy with a 10 or 15 second advantage. They still have 2 climbs to go before the finish. That's the Côte de Benahin and then the final ascent right up there to the finish here at Huy.
And just under 6 kilometres to go to the penultimate climb. It looks as though Bartoli and Vanderbrook are the 2 strongmen of this chase group now. They've been ripping off the front and opening the gaps. Then they have to slow down to reorganise the chase again. But these turns of speed have got to keep control of Jalleh, and whereas when we came to the previous climbs, Jalleh was waiting for his move, it looks as though they're letting him dangle now, and then when we get to the climb, then they're going to make their move, and that's probably on the mind of Vanderbrook as he comes through now, and a little bit of help coming also from Rodolfo Massi. I think Casino, Paul, have got 4 riders in this front group.
They certainly have, and very good riders as well. Massi ridden excellently so far this year. They've got Bo Hamburger up there, and he's riding very well. And it will be interesting to see just exactly what their tactic is going to be, because they're not the kind of team that comes in and puts the hammer down, who organises themselves. They do this kind of move here. They send riders off one at a time to try and get into small groups. I think that was Bo Hamburger trying to jump across there, but straight away Vanderbrook are reacting very quickly indeed to nail him down and try and keep him in that group, because Vanderbrook, I think, realises the best way to catch Jalleh is to keep the group intact and all work together on the flat sections in between these climbs.
Well, they're on a slight downhill run here as they race towards the penultimate climb, and you see how tenacious that line is. They're all back together again.
They certainly are. It really is starting to hot up at the moment as they turn onto the flat section now. In fact, it can't be very much more than 5 or 6 seconds for these two leaders. And it's a long, straight road now to the bottom of the Côte de Benahin, and they will be in sight all of the time. So the attack there over the Côte de Buoy really didn't have that much effect on the advantage that Laurent Jalabert was looking for. He would have hoped, I think, to open up a 20 or 30 second advantage here, and the official time check that we're being given is 4 seconds.
Well, it really is a desperate attempt now. As we look back, there in the distance is the chase group, but you know they are still in the lead, and if they can just scurry on to the last climb before the finish, there's still a chance here that they won't get caught.
Well, after putting in so much effort over that last climb, the only thing that Jalabert and Bogart can do now is try and make sure they can get to the bottom of the next climb with a slight advantage, because that, at this stage of the game now, really is the last bullet they have to play. And Jalabert, still not confident, still looking over his shoulder, but he has to keep going, because now I think he's used a little bit too much energy, because if it all came back together, he wouldn't have enough force left for the sprint.
Well, they're very, very close now to the start of the climb of the Côte de Benahin. And Bogart just checking all of the time now, and he's saying something to Jalabert, and it might be, is it worth it, because they're coming up on us.
I think he's saying, look, Jaja, it's all over, because there they are, and it's Nico Matin on the front, the teammate of Frank Vanderbrook. Now, these two riders went down to the Côte d'Azur and trained together. Nico Matin third in Wevelgem last week. Today, trying to set it up again for his own teammate, VDB. And there's VDB in third position there, wearing number 11.
And the second rider for Rabobank there, Martin den Becker. And the Casino ever watchful here, Bo Hamburger is the rider now in the picture. And there's the other Casino rider, Alberto Elli, followed by Nicola Bartoli and Luc Leblanc. And there's a whole string of them coming through here now. So this is a very, very useful little group once again that's brought everybody together.
Axel Merckx, a Polti rider as well, teammate of Luc Leblanc. He'll be looking for a good performance today, because his father is at the top of the Mur de Huy here, waiting to see if Axel can come back to some kind of form, the kind of form that he showed a few years ago. And in fact, Phil, this group really has swelled quite a lot over the last few kilometres.
There's a lot of riders got back here. Andrea Noe also went through for the Asics team, and sitting here now at the back is Luc Leblanc.
Luc Leblanc wearing the bands of the rainbow jersey. He was a former world champion. Terrible season after that for him. He took the World Championship title in Sicily in 1994, and this group certainly has swelled up to be a very large group indeed. The Cofidis rider there is Francesco Casagrande, and a lot of effort was put in there by the attack of Jalabert and Bogart, and it came to naught.
I think they were just a selection of names that the producer has given us there, because there's certainly a lot more riders than that. And somebody now has decided, as the climb starts, to try and see if they can at last break up this tenacious half of the race. Nobody will give up. We've got sort of 3, 6, 9 riders there trying to put the pressure on at the front, and I'm not sure it's going to work. Andrea Perron also trying to, I presume, bridge the gap from the split in the group here.
Perron always looking for an opportunity, always looking to try and get off the front. In fact, Phil, I think he'd come out of that group and he was once again trying to get off the front of the race. So Perron, the Italian from Florence, feels that he's got a chance now to come off with the big win. He's always been very close after his World Championships in the team time trial many years ago of coming up with a great performance, and it may well be today, because that group behind is so big now. A lot of those riders are going to start to watch each other as we come up to the next climb.
It's a good time to go, that's for sure. He's gone on a wide open road. These little slopes are hard if you're trying to hit them at 30 miles an hour. And a little bit of disorganisation now as riders look at one another. Bogart has got himself back into this group and seems to have settled down again. Another little gap open though. It's very difficult now to keep control and who to watch, because there are a lot of good riders here, quite capable now of taking this race out.
It's Nico Matin just sitting up on the front there, looking to see exactly where Frank Vanderbrook is, and very shortly Andrea Perron is going to be on the slopes of the Côte de Benahin. I've got it down these days as the Côte d'Ahin, but it actually comes out of the town of Benahin. And it really is a very difficult climb. Just 10.5 kilometres to go from the summit, and Andrea Perron hoping now that there is going to be a marking match going on behind, because a lot of big names still in that group of over 20 riders.
And here comes the counter-attack from the field now. This is the Mappe boys, and it looks like it could be Vanderbrook.
May well be Nico Matin trying to take the pressure off Vanderbrook, because it looks just a little bit bigger than Frank Vanderbrook. In fact, it is Matin, and he's trying to force the other big names, I think, in this group to set up the chase, to set up a little bit of reaction behind Andrea Piron at the moment, and then hopefully it'll bring it all back together and his teammate Frank Vanderbrook can then launch the offensive. This is Pascal Hervé as well, still riding a very good race this afternoon.
Hervé is the likely man for Festina if he can get across, and again a little bit of picture breakup, and there's nothing we can do about it, but we'll stay with the pictures of course, as Nico Matin has gone straight back in as the 1 in 10 or 10% climb starts to bite. 2.6 kilometres long this, and this is beginning to split up the field. But having said that, Paul, there's still a lot of riders hanging in there.
A lot of riders. It's very rare after the attacking style we've seen over those last couple of climbs for such a big group of riders still to be all together. And Piron now, you can see, starting to suffer quite a bit here on this part of the climb. All he's doing is hoping that he can get over the summit with a slight advantage, because it's quite a tricky descent off this climb here down to the main road again and heading down towards the town of Buoy. Hervé, he feels that he's got the power to get across.
Well, I'm not so sure he has, because the counter-attacks are coming. Looks like could be Luc Leblanc trying to get across here.
Great climber Pascal Hervé, turned professional at a very late age, around about 27 years of age, but since then he adapted very quickly to the professional ranks and slipped into a very good role with Festina. I think in fact that's Bo Hamburger who's come across there from Casino. Strange to see him riding now on a different jersey, because for so long he represented the Dutch TVM team, and again one of the big changes of this winter season.
Well, he was with the TVM boys since he turned pro, but he claims he hasn't left them on bad terms, nor the side at Case Prime. Purely he felt it like he needed a different motivation.
Well, Jaja's going again there. He's been away several times so far this afternoon over the last 10 or 15 kilometres, and now he can see the hopes of winning Fleche Wallonne slip away from him. He's decided he's going to go out there. He's got no more teammates left because he completely used them up earlier on in the race as we headed down to the Côte de Boisseau, but Jaja's not got it.
No, you're quite right. He's faded. Bogart is having a go, though, but looking for help. Nicola Bartoli is the man gone through the middle of them. And Bogart, too, looks as though he's also suffering from aching legs right now. Michele Bartoli, he's shown us some good riding strength today. But they're all at about, I would think, the limit of their endurance right now as they start to try and break clear.
Casino boys controlling it there. Now at the head of the race, 3 riders, because they've joined Andrea Piron. Bo Hamburger in the middle there, and right on the front Pascal Hervé. Hervé having a very good ride in Fleche Wallonne this afternoon, keeping the tempo high as they head up to the summit of this penultimate climb of today's Fleche Wallonne, the Côte de Benahin.
Nice road surface, but it's still a little bit of a drag this, as Hamburger keeps going. Very talented bike rider, Bo Hamburger. First saw him when he raced in Britain, and I remember him breaking away in the Kellogg's Tour of Britain and romping over the climbs of the north of England, and he looked really, really solid. It's taken him a little time to come through, but this is a good move for him today.
Second in the World Championships last year, and 2 wins to his credit so far this season. A very good stage of the Tour of Valencia, and an excellent win in the Tour of Pays Basque, where he actually beat Laurent Jalabert to the top of a mountaintop finish.
Well, perhaps Laurent might be time to remind him of that with 11 kilometres to go, because this group is splitting, but it certainly isn't disappearing, is it? It's still finding men in there willing to chase.
And still a lot of very big names in the world of professional cycling. Luc Leblanc seems to have found his legs this afternoon. A real flourish towards the end of his career. He's been professional for an awful long time now, and I think he's looking for a very big win.
Leblanc putting on the pressure, or trying to find a wheel in which he can grab onto at this moment in time, as he hooks up with the back of the group, and there's still riders finding the strength to wind away from this group now.
Orange jersey there for the Rabobank team is Martin den Becker. He slipped into the group as well after all of the work that's been done by his teammate Michael Bogart earlier on. Rabobank starting to have a rather good season now as we head into the very important hilly classics, and for them, the Dutch riders, it's in 2 weeks' time, they'll be looking at the Amstel Gold Race, which for them is very often one of the most important days of the year.
This is Rodolfo Massi here at the front now. Bo Hamburger, Bartoli going through on the inside. He won't let them rest at all now, and quickly jumped on there. I think it was by Laurent Dufault, was he, Paul?
That's Laurent Dufault straight up there. And again, Hamburger covering the moves. Nicola Bartoli's attack there looked like it was going to be a decisive one, but everybody now starting to get very nervous as they go over the summit of the climb. Then Becker has reacted too for Rabobank, so now 4 riders in the lead.
And 4 good names here at this stage of the race. There's no more climbs now. There'll be a descent. We'll head down into the town of Huy. And then it's just going to be a complete showdown time on the wall itself.
There's still all the time. These riders are coming back up. 4 more riders there, led by Pascal Hervé, and Andrea Perron was in there. And actually a much bigger gap now, which is being led on the front there by Petito. And haven't seen Frank Vanderbrook for a little while.
No, Axel Merckx is the man in second place there, trying to reorganise the chase. But looking down the line, I don't see Vanderbrook, but he's got to be in there. There he is. He's just gone through now. So he's near the back. And he's actually missed the move that may count here, because that gap has begun to open and there's not the same effort being made here now, because one man left to do all of the riding at the front.
Well, in fact, Vanderbrook very confident in the newspapers this morning, especially the French-speaking ones, because he does come from the French-speaking part of Belgium, the Wallonne, where we are at the moment. And as far as they were concerned, nobody was going to beat Vanderbrook. Although he rode extremely well last week, he doesn't quite seem to have had the edge this afternoon. Every time the big attacks have come on these climbs, he just seems to have had a little bit missing.
Well, the last Belgian rider to win this event was also French-speaking, and that was Claude Coquillon back in 1989. Since then, it's been a heyday, really, for the Italians, with a couple of intrusions by Jalleh.
And won by an American rider by the name of Lance Armstrong.
Indeed.
Lance not with us today because having made a very successful comeback after his battle against testicular cancer, in fact finishing 14th overall in the Ruta del Sol, he abandoned the Paris-Nice race and nobody's heard very much about him since.
Well, I think it'll be a little while, but Lance, I'm sure, will be back. The breakaway here still continuing, or trying to organise itself, but Massey also not looking so good now. Andrea Perron. They're all looking at each other. That's fatal, but the gap is still there just about as the split is on now. And this is Bo Hamburger sitting at the back here.
Stuck in the middle there, Laurent Dufault, and right on the front, Martin Dimbacher. But here's Vanderbrook. He certainly knows how to react. He's a very aggressive rider. When he sees the point of a race that he thinks it's about to change, he takes all the responsibility of the race into his own hands. He leaps off the front, and marking him, riding a good Fleche Wallonne, is Michael Bogart. And now they're about to start the descent, and this descent here off the Côte de Benaïn is a very tricky one.
Well, you've got to take your hat off to Bogart, because he's now still trying to take part in this race. He must be extremely tired after that breakaway. And yet he's willing to try and pick up now with Frank Vanderbrook and get himself across the leaders. Flick of the left arm. I'm not sure whether Bogart can come through, Frank.
He certainly can't. That flick is a sign that all the big professional riders use when they want to show that their turn at setting the pace at the front is over. But unfortunately on this occasion, I don't think Bogart's got anything left in his legs, and he's going to have to leave all of the work up to Frank Vanderbrook on the front. Just 23 years of age and already 30 victories in the professional ranks to his credit.
And he's keeping the big gear rolling. He's deciding it's better to keep the pressure on and not wait to lose ground here.
And he can't lose any ground at the moment because we're well inside 10 kilometres to go. They're telling us 8.8, so that's just over 5 miles and around about 10 minutes left of racing. So now is the time that you cannot afford to let little groups just slip off the front like this, because if you get 15 or 20 seconds, then you won't see the group again.
Well, Frank's done well there, and look at Bogart. He's like a little gadfly. He's sticking on the back of him, and he's going with every move. Immediately, Frank Vanderbrook came onto the back of the group, looked up, and saw that the others were speeding off the front, and he still had the legs to go round him. He's riding like a winner right now for sure.
He certainly is, but look at the reaction of Nicola Bartoli, the man we're following right now. He saw that attack come. He was caught out a little bit in the crossfire there, and he decided that this was a good move to go across, with Vanderbrook doing the ideal move there as soon as he caught the group and he could see the disorganisation, launching an immediate attack. On the front here is Bo Hamburger, and I think very shortly Vanderbrook will make the junction, so we'll be looking at a group at the front of the race of 6 riders.
And surely those are the names that will decide this year's Fleche Wallonne. There's been a lot of riders tried to intrude on the big names today, but right now it looks as though the big names of the race is gradually bringing themselves together. Here's Bartoli, his sleeves rolled up and he's ready for business. He's a man of the Ardennes. He won Bastogne-Liège last year. He will try and defend that title in just 4 days' time. And judging by the way he's riding, he's got the condition. Bogart, Vanderbrook, and then Den Becker.
Two riders from Rabobank, so they'll work very well together. Now I think Bogart pushing himself just a little bit deeper, because although he's been on the attack for an awful long time, he probably feels that his teammate Den Becker has got a good chance of getting a top 3 finish when it comes to the top of the Mur de Huy. But again, these riders, there's no organisation. Den Becker now going off the front on his own, but the riders behind have allowed him a little bit of an advantage, and that means that they're going to slow down the pace just a little bit as he takes this very difficult left-hand turn, and now they'll start what is going to be quite a treacherous descent. And in fact, that slowing down around the corner there has allowed a few more riders to come back up to the lead.
And they've clawed the way back up here. The roads just here are really very slippery. Leading the charge down the mountain is Martin Den Becker, former champion of Holland, as he tries to make a good, fearless Dutchman's descent of the mountain. But 3, 6, 6.5, there'll shortly be 7 on that group as they start to come down the mountain.
Well, Frank Vanderbrook was leading them down to begin with, but Pascal Hervé has decided to take up the pace setting just a little bit to try and get across to the Dutchman at the front there, because they realise now we're getting very close to the finish and you cannot allow any single rider to go away, because if the man can pick up 20 or 30 seconds now is the chance that you do have of stealing an advantage over the rest of the group.
And the one that man we're not mentioning at all right now is Loren Jalleh. He's completely disappeared from these attacking riders now. Now this is the narrow part of the descent, and the roads are very, very greasy. But Den Becker is having a go here. This is his big effort now. Charge off this mountain, or it's a sort of mountain in this event, and then down into the town, and then see if he can find the legs to go back up the climb.
Now this is a tricky corner there. Look at the Festina rider behind. In fact, he misjudged that completely going around the corner there. Den Becker came into it nice and slowly, picked his way around there, but the Festina rider in second position there was trying to take a few risks to get himself onto the back wheel of Den Becker, and he completely misjudged the corner.
He did well to get his bike to stop at all. Anyway, he's still up there, and we'll try and find out who it is. It's either Hervé or Dufault who's trying to get up with the leader.
Now off the mountain now, just a very good section of road for about 4 kilometres before we get to the foot of the Mur de Huy. Well, Den Becker is still holding on to a lead over the rest of the riders now. What he must do is give everything that he has to try and get up to the finish. But in fact, Phil, that was Laurent Dufault going down there, and it's rare to see him taking risks like that, especially with the Tour of Romandy coming up, the Tour of Switzerland and the Tour de France.
Big times indeed, but these boys want confirmation their form is coming, because now the season is moving on, and Laurent Dufault is doing a great ride, 4th in the Tour de France last year. And there's other riders now trying to pull themselves into the scene here. One rider we don't talk too much about, Roberto Petito of the Seiko team, is also still in our picture. Here he comes, the big tall man on the Seiko Cannondale squad.
Frank Vanderbrook still very nervous indeed. This is the attack of Vanderbrook. He knows now that there are 2 riders in front. He was waiting for a moment to catch everybody by surprise, because we're getting to the very critical point now where we're going to take a right-hand turn up to the top of the Mur de Huy, and he doesn't want anybody to clip off the front with 10 or 15 seconds, because he's starting to feel trapped in that group.
Well, we've got Dufault, who's now got himself up to Martin Den Becker, and together they are really going good here. The road generally is down now until we get into the town, and then we climb up to the line, and it's a vicious climb. And a counter-attack coming all of the time here now. This looks like we've got Alberto Elli getting across for Casino. They've certainly had the players in this breakaway, 5 of them in fact, and they're using as best they can all of them right now.
Well, every time a little group comes or there's a small split off the front, they've got the advantage of sending a different man after the split each time, and that's the great thing. They're almost like a team of musketeers. But certainly I do feel that the squad and the mentality of Casino has changed since they brought in 1 or 2 of the foreign riders, the Italians especially, to teach the French riders the aggression and the way to ride these races. And in fact, it really has bolstered this team, which initially started off as the Chazal squad, and over the last couple of years has really raised its profile with the new sponsor Casino.
Well, a Swiss rider, an Italian and a Dutchman, and we've got 2 French teams and a Dutch team in the breakaway. Can't get much more international than that, I suppose. And Becker, who started this move, has got himself 2 strong men here now. And in fact, I wouldn't like to pick the winner from these 3 on the climb up to the finishing line. I would suppose Dufault, because he does climb well, but you never know.
It's always difficult to judge. Dufault is a great rider when it comes to the multi-day stage races, but at the end of a very difficult one-day race like this, it is so hard to judge a climb up something like the Mur de Huy, and it would be difficult to put one's money on it, but I think I'd have to go with you there. Dufault must have the advantage because he's ridden very well this afternoon. Now Nicola Bartoli sees that Fleche Wallonne is disappearing round the corner, so he's out on the front.
And he's marked by a casino rider. I think it's Hamburger's got on. Becker is not Becker. Bogart has got across. Petito, well, they're all on him, Paul.
Well, everybody's very nervous. They're not going to let Nicola Bartoli jump away quite as easily as that, because now is a very critical moment. It looks now as if it's Roberto Petito in the red jersey from Seiko Cannondale who's launching an attack off the front again. They're very shortly going to be in the town of Huy, and if they don't pull that leading group of 3 riders back together, it's all over bar the shouting, and those 3 will be the 3 men who'll be looking at victory here in the Fleche Wallonne this afternoon.
Well, Petito virtually elbowed his way through the group there, opened them up, and he's jumped away. But the reaction is still here. There's 6 of them down there. Back up with the 3 leaders. The man that started it, Martin Becker, is setting the pace. Ellie is in 2nd place. Dufault is 3rd. They know where they are now. They're running down into the town of Huy. If this was a routine finish, then I'd say they'd won it now, but it isn't, because the climb takes them right back to the top of the road, and it is a vicious little climb.
It's more than a routine finish this afternoon. It really is a sting in the tail of Fleche Wallonne. The riders have been up it twice already so far, and they know exactly what's waiting for them, and that'll be going through their minds at the moment. They'll be realising they've put a lot of effort in over the last 10 kilometres or so, and they'll be trying to ascertain whether or not they've still got the energy to launch an attack when they come to the bottom of this very difficult climb. There's the banner across the road there, which will have the red kite on it, showing these riders they have 1 kilometre remaining, and it looks as if the Seiko Cannondale rider has come across their Petito, but so is the rest of the group.
This is amazing. 6 riders are forming now at the front, and a counter-attack by Bo Hamburger has gone on the left of our picture here. So he's just come across, and at 1 kilometre to go, Hamburger has gone, and he's opened a gap. Paulie may have hit them at exactly the right moment.
That was a good move by Hamburger, but you can lose so much time on this climb, Phil. He hasn't in fact started the steepest part yet. He looks like he's going very strongly indeed.
But they're hesitating.
Andrea Perron came up to the back there. He does have a teammate, Roberto Elli, in that group there, so that's going to slow them down a little bit. And once again, Frank Vanderbrook has missed out.
Well, Hamburger of Denmark, this little country with a handful of professionals who keep popping up with the big results. And now Bo Hamburger got the silver medal last year in the World Championships. There's in fact only ever been 1 Danish winner of this race, and we go back an awful long way to Kim Andersen, who won back in 1984. The breakaway still split here now. Hamburger is about to hit the real steep side of this event, as Pascal Hervé looks as though he's well shot, and Frank Vanderbrook having to lead the pace.
Well, Vanderbrook in the 3rd group on the road there, so he's obviously missed out completely. He was with Nicola Bartoli, and this is Bo Hamburger from Denmark, leading them all up the Mur de Huy for the last time, and a group of about 5 or 6 riders just behind him, and then the big favourites, Bartoli and VDB, well further down the climb.
Well, this is going to be an outstanding victory for Hamburger. Case Prime of TVM is going to be a little bit sick because he left his team to ride for Casino. And Casino this year can't do a thing wrong, but this will be the biggest win. As he rides up to the line, they've had 24 victories this year. Here comes number 25. It's a 1 in 5 ascent, or 20%. And look at those legs, just about lock up. And I'll tell you what, Paul, this has been an average speed today of 25 miles an hour. It's been a very fast Fleche indeed. The crowd watching now. Another foreign victory, and so a Belgian rider since 1989 has never won this event, and we're now going to see only the 2nd ever Danish winner, because he's not going to be caught now. The main field struggling here.
Phil, Frank Vanderbrook, in fact, has come away from that group that he was with, and he's joined the group 2nd on the road behind Bo Hamburger, so that's quite a remarkable comeback by him. A little bit further back, trying to stay on terms with Bo Hamburger, is Luc Leblanc, but Vanderbrook has certainly leapt across the gap there, and he's moving up very quickly through the field.
Well, Vanderbrook, there he is at the back in the whitish jersey, still hanging on here as the riders climb towards the top. Luc Leblanc is setting the pace at the moment, gritting his teeth. We've seen some great riders come up this climb and take victory like Moreno Argentin, Maurizio Fondries, but now we're watching Bo Hamburger stamp his authority on the Fleche Wallonne. It'll certainly be the finest victory of his life here, beaten by Laurent Brochard at the World Championships last year in Spain. But this one is for him and for Denmark, and Vanderbrook, I think, has got clear. I think Vanderbrook may have done what I thought was impossible, and so did Paul, because he was a long way back at the start of the climb. He's crossed the gap and he's going to be the best of the rest. As coming up towards the line now, Bo Hamburger is going to take the banner. Wiseman checking that nobody is sneaking up on him, and now he can enjoy his finest moment as a pro. And he's doing the Neil Stevens rocker baby as he crosses the line. And right behind him, Vanderbrook. Good piece of speed by Frankie Vanderbrook. He'll go out favourite for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Alberto Elli, who I think laid the foundation today for the victory by his teammate, gets third. And Martin Den Bakker fourth. And Nicola Bartoli over there in fifth place. Well, that was a really superb race today.
It certainly was a remarkable move by the Casino boys, because they judged everything perfectly. They had a man in every move, but the man I think was one of the revelations of Fleche Wallonne this afternoon is coming across the line right now. Michael Bogart, seriously aggressive, and the man missing from the top 20 really, I think, Laurent Jalleh.
So there's the result, a win for Bo Hamburger of Denmark and Casino. Second was Vandenbroek, third was Ellie, fourth Den Bakker. And looking down the list there, Pascal Hervé 7th. Petito, great ride by him today. He finished in 8th place. This was a terrific Fleche Wallonne. And join us next time for Liège-Bastogne-Liège. Until then, for Paul and myself, Phil Liggett, goodbye.